Welcome to the Sisterhood Collective podcast, where we empower women to break barriers, overcome limiting beliefs, and achieve true success. I'm your host, Laurie Drummond, entrepreneur and founder of 5 successful businesses. Join me as I share proven strategies, interview inspirational leaders, and provide behind-the-scenes insights to help you level up in your business, career, and in life. Because together, we can get further faster. Okay, let's dive in. Welcome back to another episode of the Sisterhood Collective podcast, where we explore the journeys, stories, and insights that empower women to break barriers and live their best lives. I'm excited to have you join us today for a conversation that dives deep into the question, what does your best life look like to you? I'm your host, Laurie Drummond, and I'm joined by 2 incredible women who absolutely mean the world to me, and they'll be sharing their perspective and experience with us too. Before we dive into our discussion, I want to take a moment to reflect on a personal experience that transformed my own path towards living my best life. So it was a few years ago, I found myself in a seemingly exciting job overseas, earning a salary beyond my wildest dreams, but something wasn't quite right. And there were 2 crucial factors that began to take a toll on my well-being. Firstly, the demands of the job prevented me from being there for my loved ones during important and special moments. I couldn't attend family gatherings or celebrate the milestones of my friends. And that for me, it left me with this profound sense of emptiness or, disconnection. And secondly, I was working in a toxic environment and it started to chip away at my happiness. Each day I would drive to work, I'd be anxious, I'd be nervous, and I was wondering, great, who's going to be in a mood today? Who do I need to tiptoe around? And who am I going to be navigating? And as you can imagine, it just was this overwhelming negativity. It just seeped through my personal life. It impacted my overall well-being and also my relationship at the time. I also found myself putting on a few kilos. I felt like I was having to use this fake energy for people and create this persona that just wasn't me, wasn't my authentic self. And I wasn't really keen on getting out much. Like I didn't want to go out anymore and socialize. And I think I just really lost sight of what truly made me happy. So it was during this period that I realized I needed a change. I needed to redefine what my best life truly meant to me. And then I had to be courageous. I had to take that step towards reclaiming it. And you could say that this awakening propelled me on a journey of self-discovery, growth, and finding a sense of fulfillment that, goes beyond monetary success. And I never thought I would say that. But today, we're going to explore concepts of living our best life and what it means for each of us. And I'm going to dive into our conversation with Lauren and Tegan as we explore what their best lives look like and uncover the invaluable insights that they have gained along the way also. Lauren, Tegan, welcome. Thank you for joining me today. Tegan, let's start with you. Tell me, what was a defining moment for you when you realized you weren't living your best life?
So I think my best life looks a little bit like my life now, I guess. That is my best life. It means that I'm more financially stable. It means that I have a career or, a job that I'm passionate about and that I look forward to doing every day. I have a circle of friends around me that support me. So I've got a support network. And I've also got some freedom of time because that's quite big for me. I like to be creative. I like to have room to move and travel and do as I please a little bit. So I think to me, that's the most important thing is just, following my passion, having people around me that support my passion and having my passion actually pay me. So, they're all the things that facilitate my best life.
So then tell me, when was the time or the moment that you actually noticed you weren't living your best life?
I think we go through cycles of life, which was a little bit like what you touched on, that it does change all the time. So I've had a great multiple few lives. I've been a mother for a big part of my life. And I'm always going to be a mother, but raising my children day in, day out and nurturing them. I grew up in that time as well, because I had children quite young. I was 19, 20 when I had my first child. So they were kind of my maturing years during that sort of 10 years or so of being a full-time mum. And then as my kids got older, I had always put them first, as most mothers do naturally. And then I got to a point where I looked around and I thought, oh gosh, is this it for the rest of my life? What do I do when the kids, they don't need me as much anymore? They're at full-time school. They're starting to pack their own lunches. They're becoming little adults. And I sort of had a good look around me, and I had to really evaluate if this was the path for me, or had I just grown very comfortable in this lifestyle, which is really easy to do. And I never want to judge other women, because I think a lot of women, they enjoy the comfort, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. There is nothing wrong with being in a place where you just feel comfortable. But for me, there was more. I thrive in the discomfort. I feel motivated. I feel alive. I feel accomplished when I'm out of the comfort. That's where my growth is. So I felt like to do that, I had to leave my comfort, which was my first marriage. So I left that, and that was the turning point for me. That was when there was no looking back, when there was a new chapter and a new life that was going to unfold from that moment on.
What were some of the feelings that you felt in that situation just before you left your first marriage? How are you feeling with life at that point?
Pretty bored, pretty stale, pretty unappreciated, pretty lost, even though I think from the outside it looked like I had it all. I had brand new cars, I had a beautiful home, I holidayed regularly, I didn't have to work if I didn't want to. I had a really supportive husband who was good to me. So for the outside looking in, people were like, what is she up to? What is she doing? They thought I had lost my mind. So it was really scary, because I had a lot of judgment on me, and I had my family to think about as well. It was a selfless act, but I also felt very selfish. And I think I personally will always have mother's guilt for the rest of my life. I will always carry that, because I chose me. I chose a life that was, outside of the normal home, which was what I'd created, that family unit. So that sticks with me quite heavily, and it's a quite emotional thing for me to talk about. But I know a lot of mums that have made the choice for themselves, they too have been persecuted for it. People doubt them, they judge them, they look down on them because of it. But at the end of the day, we're women, we're independent women of the home and the family unit, and we've got just as much right to feel successful, accomplished, empowered, and to go out and live our lives on our own. So, yeah.
So you still got a great relationship with your kids now, I know.
Yes. And that it all takes work, doesn't it? It all takes hard work.
Want to take you back to that moment again, Tegan, where you said you were a little bit bored, but life was good. Like, to the outside world, your life looked quite nice. But there's other people out there that are in a life that is not serving them. So what is it at that time that you were thinking? You obviously sat there and thought, there is more out there for me. But did you have your mind set on what more looked like?
Not really. I think part of that was the excitement of figuring that out on my own, because I never felt that I had that choice. I left school quite young. I did lots of odd jobs. It wasn't like I went to university, or I had a degree, or I had some life, mapped out in front of me. I didn't have that. So I think in that regard, I was quite savvy. I'd worked, endless jobs. So, I'm a bit street smart, I suppose. So I knew whatever that I searched for, I'm so determined that I would make it happen regardless of what it was. And I just had to figure that out on my own. And I needed time away from that family unit. I needed time to breathe. I went and traveled. I had a bit of what's the movie in Bali, the Eat, Pray, Love. I had a few of those trips. Because as a mum, you are rarely on your own. You rarely have time to think in your own thoughts, to be lost, to have nothing to do, to have to sit in your own thoughts is incredibly frightening, but incredibly eye-opening. as is traveling alone and feeling completely alone in the world. So I think things like that is what helped me navigate that. You have those certain moments where there's awakenings to, oh, wow, this is my passion. This is what I want to do.
And to be fair, you have come so far since then. Your life has completely changed.
Yeah, it has. Yeah, I've traveled a lot. I've created a network of people, all over the world. I've forged a business. I've learned to be a better leader. I've matured. I've had time to grow and mature. And that's something that I don't think that I had the opportunity to do until I left it and went out on my own to do that on my own. Yeah.
That sounds like you've had a massive journey there, but as you say, you were looking at success, you've chased it. I love that. Lauren, I wanted to just kind of touch on your story a little bit. Tell us a defining moment for you when you sat there and realized, I am not living my best life.
For me, at the moment, the most recent thing I can think of was a year ago when I was living in Malta and my marriage sort of dissolved. I had to figure out what I was going to do. I mean, I lived in Europe for 15 years. My children's father is from that side of the world. Do I stay there and do something, or do I come home? And in my head, I've always wanted to come home. For the whole 15 years I was away, I've always wanted to be at home, but I didn't. I had other things to do, other dreams and things, and I knew I always wanted to come back here, and I didn't. So that was sort of a defining thing, and that was the only thought I had in my head was, I get to come home.
So when your life started to fall apart in front of you, you said, the only thing I know that is good is returning home.
Yeah.
And then you did that.
I did that. You need your family around you at times like that. I don't know. Life had gotten a bit boring in Malta. I was there for nearly 10 years. I had a really good life, a good expat life, lots and lots of holidays, great friends. I was living on an island. It was like being on holiday 365 days a year. I didn't have to worry about anything, but my husband worked away a lot. So I was like the token single friend who wasn't allowed to be single. And had never really been driven by money before. It didn't bother me. It was not something that I'd ever thought about. And then suddenly it's thrust upon me that I always wanted a career, but the money part wasn't the thing. It was I wanted to do something that I was passionate about. And I just didn't do anything. I had 2 kids and they took up 100% of my time, or I let them take up 100% of my time. And that was sort of another moment where I've decided that I can come home, I've got support, and I really should do something that I want to do now. Yeah, you get caught up on family life and everyone else's needs come before yours. Not through any fault of theirs or yours. It's just what happens, and maybe that's what happens as a mother. You want to care for other people.
Tell me, what gave you the courage to pack up your entire life and everything you knew for the past decade and bring 2 beautiful daughters back to Melbourne and start all over again?
In my head, even though nothing bad had happened, I always thought if something happens, the first thing I'll do is go home. So when that happened, it was like the answer was sort of taken away from me. I could just do it. And that's what I decided to do. I actually already had a ticket to come home for the summer. In Malta, the kids have summer for 3 months, which is crazy. And I'd booked a ticket to come home. And so I took that, and I haven't used the return ticket. And that's what brought me. I didn't have any other plans. I just get home and that's it.
So one of the things that I found that was really holding me back was, or it was a limiting belief for me. Like, I was in a really, really good job overseas, living the expat life, making so much money so I could buy anything that I wanted. But what I didn't have was freedom of time. And one of the reasons that maybe kept me here just that little bit longer than it should have was not knowing how else I could make that money to give me that freedom of choice. And then if I was to return back to Australia, would I be happy? What would I do? Could I do enough? How else would I get a job? I don't know if I've got the qualifications to get another really decent paying job. So there was all these excuses and what ifs that just held me back. But then what happened was like a bit of a defining moment where I realized that everyone around me was unhappy. And I had a best friend getting married and I couldn't go to that because of the work that I was doing. So obviously, having been in the army for nearly 14 years, you're dictated to a little bit and you're restricted as to, when you can take holidays, where you're going to live and things like that. And so then what I did was I found myself in exactly the similar position. I couldn't take Christmas off because we worked through Christmas. I couldn't take certain holidays when I wanted to take holidays because my job dictated what I did. And what I realized was everyone else around me was also unhappy, but they were wanting the money. To them, it was all about just building this kitty of money. And I decided to choose a number that was a number that I wanted to make sure was in my bank account, a balance. And then I decided to return to Australia and then go find out what that life looked like. Because what I noticed was I was putting on weight. I wasn't training as much anymore. I most certainly wasn't happy. And what I really realized was I wasn't even laughing anymore. And I'm a joker. So I started to lose myself just that little bit. And I've had another situation that's actually a lot worse than that, but that's for another time for sure. But it was definitely a defining moment. And I feel like for me, it's like when suddenly I can't be with the loved ones that I want to be with and be and enjoy those important moments with somebody else, that I'm that restricted, and that's time for me to reevaluate life and then make some big and sometimes tough decisions and take a risk. And that's the thing. I guess the other part to that is, what if it didn't work out for me? What if I went home and it wasn't successful? I think I've always had this belief that it always works out, and it doesn't always happen when you want it to. But the thing is that there is always options. If plan A doesn't work, plan B is there. If plan B doesn't work, plan C is there. And, something I always tell people, particularly when I'm mentoring or teaching, was always build a network. And I'm not saying you have to be friends with every single person, but build a network, because you just never know that, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, you could reach out to that person or vice versa. They reach out to you and an opportunity could avail and open up doors you never imagined. And I feel like that always happens, and it happens to everybody. You've just got to be willing to see the doors and walk through them. So what I wanted to do now was, I guess, go a little bit into, when you start life all over again, what steps do you take to build a supportive community around you that helps you live your best life? So we'll start with you, Lauren, because you've just returned from, more recently, I guess, to go, you know what, I am not living my best life, and it starts now, right now, and I'm home and I'm in Melbourne. What are you doing right now to build this supportive community, people that build you up and help you live your best life? And here's another question. Do you know what your best life looks like, or are you still working that out?
Definitely still working that out. I mean, to me, family's always been big, and I know a lot of people don't have a supportive family, but I always have, and I've been away from them for so long. So coming back here, having them has helped a lot. It's freed up a bit of time. They're always willing to do whatever needs to get done. What else? I mean, I know that I want to be happy. I know that I want a career that I really love. I know that I want to be financially secure. And those are sort of my top priorities at the moment before I can think about anything else, because that's what's hovering over my head. I want to make sure I have a job and I can still be a full-time mum. Sacrifices will have to be made, but I still want to be able to take them to school. I still want to be able to pick them up, go to different things. And in some jobs, you can't do that. I used to work on super yachts. If you think of like below deck, that's exactly what I did. So I can't go back to that. I was earning so much money doing that. It's tax-free. You're in a different port, different country every other week. It's amazing. And I could easily go back and do that, but then my kids would be in foster care. That I can't do that anymore. So I have to think of something else that I can do where I can have my children and they have a really good life and I can do something. So it's taking a bit of work to try and figure out what that is. And at the moment, you know, being part of the Sisterhood Collective, that is, you know, really helping me as well. And it's changing my mindset. I was saying before that, you know, so much emphasis is put on, you know, a partner, husband, wife, anything that you might have, and nobody really puts on any emphasis on your friendships, on your best friends, on your girlfriends, and they're the ones that you need to go to. They're not need to go to, but they're always the ones that you go to when you've got troubles, you have a drink with, you've got problems with your husband, or you've got problems with that. You always talk to your girlfriend. You're always happy to see them. They always make you feel happy. They make you feel silly. You laugh with them. You can go away with them. And I think there's not really enough emphasis put on that, because they're a strong network that you need to utilize, because they're the ones that do hold you up. It's nice to have a partner that does that as well. But I think friendships just don't get as much of a look in as a partner does.
The clear thing that I'm seeing here is that it's only you who knows what your best life looks like. The problem is we're too worried about what everybody else is thinking about us. And I mean, I'm guilty of this as well. I care what people think of me. I don't know what that's about. And I'm personally trying to get better at that, to decide, well, you don't know the personal things about me. You don't know the destination, the journey, the vision, or where I'm wanting to go. You don't know what's influenced me in my life. You don't know my current circumstances. There's all these things. So people have when they judge is a piece of information. They don't have the narrative and the story behind that. They don't know your personal journey. And so I feel like because we care so much, there's no reason to care about what other people think, because they don't know the whole story.
It's difficult because you get pigeonholed a lot. You know, you get pigeonholed as just a mother or a stay-at-home mum, or you get pigeonholed as you, Laurie, might get pigeonholed as someone who doesn't have children, and she can just do whatever she wants. Or you get somebody that's married and they, you know, all they care about is their husband and they don't want to do anything with anyone else. Or then like now I'm getting the thing, she's just the single mum, you know, she might be trouble. It's bizarre that like nobody knows who you are at all, and suddenly you're something. I'm like looking around going, hang on, you know, I'm now like found myself like labeled with something else, and it's not who I am.
It's funny you talk about labels. This is just a sidebar here, but you know, I was talking to one of the guys from an organization that I contract with sometimes, and he was telling me about a woman that he'd met and blah blah blah. I said, oh, so you guys this is your girlfriend? And he said, I don't really want to put a label on it. I'm like, I love that. I said, and you don't have to. I said, there is no such, you know, label like anymore. Like you can be anyone you want to be and you don't have to label anything. So I kind of love that. So what I want to ask is, when we're talking all about living your best life here, firstly, you actually need to know what that looks like. You can't take the first step towards living your best life until you sit down and write that down. You need to write down what that looks like for you right now. Now, when I first did this, I thought, what does my best life look like? Oh, it's sitting in Greece and, you know, living the life that I loved living when I was in my mid-20s, when Lauren and I were traveling. And so I wrote that down, but that actually isn't reality. And I don't think I would like that all the time. So since then, I rewrite what my best life looks like for me. But that's the first step. The absolute number one step is write down what your best life looks like for you. And then when you're looking at what your best life looks like, you want to look at all these different categories, right? You're looking at, what's my family and friendship look like? Am I going out with people and seeing them as much as I want to? Am I contacting my family? You're also looking at things like, am I making enough money to support the needs and wants of my lifestyle? You know, you're also looking at other areas. Is my business where it wants to be, or am I in the right position, the right job that I want to be in? Have I got freedom of time? Am I dreaming? Have I got good investments, et cetera, et cetera? So you want to look at all these little categories of your life. And if you look in the show notes, you will find that we have a free perfect day exercise that you can download. And there's a lot of questions there to prompt you to start thinking about what your best day slant life looks like for you. And I encourage you to just download that. Like I said, it's free. But once you actually know what that looks like, that's when you can sit there and evaluate and go, well, if that's what it looks like, what do I need to get there? So that's when you can start creating the steps. Now, that might not be 100% clear, but all you need to do is be 1% better every day. So take that very first step. Maybe it's a crawl. And I think that's important. But what I also just wanted to go through was along the way of trying to find your best life. Now, you two have both spoken about defining moments when you sat there and went, and myself, where we've sat there and gone, I am not living my best life. I'm unhappy, depressed, dissatisfied, whatever that was. But to get to where you are, you've most likely had to make either some difficult decisions or made some sacrifices along the way. For me, it was giving up a massive income. But that's okay. We make that back. What has it been for you? Tegan?
So the sacrifice, I guess, and what I had to give up was the comfort factor. It was the cushy family life that I had. That was it, plain and simple. And then, you make that decision or you make that leap or jump or whatever that looks like. And there's not much going back after that. So, yeah.
I was just going to say, why is it so hard? I think that's probably the scariest part for a lot of people is like, if I choose a different life, if I leave my job, if I leave my husband, if I leave a country, what's going to happen? I mean, is that the fear of what if? And we're always writing a negative narrative and like ending the story really badly instead of thinking, well, no. And, most of us are smart enough to know we're not going to end up on the street. We know what to do. It might be a struggle, but do it. And I think it's just that fear of taking that leap that sometimes it takes you a while to make that decision. And then eventually maybe something makes that decision for you and you do it and you're like, well, I've done it. And it's always in hindsight. So I think the thing is to try and realize when to take that leap is the thing.
The defining moment for me was having a luncheon during COVID or just after COVID. It was kind of a mini lockdown where you could have, 10 people over or whatever. And I got a bunch of girlfriends over for the luncheon, a little long lunch, which is my favorite thing to do. And everyone just sits around and starts talking. They may not even know each other, but everyone's talking. And particularly after a few glasses of champagne, the talk was very free flowing. And all I did was take a little seat back and then listen to what everyone was saying, which is when I started to realize we could help each other. And I think I've shared this part of my story before. I noticed that I had all these amazing women in the same room, but they didn't necessarily know each other, but they could help each other. And let's go forward about maybe a year to 18 months. I don't know how long it was between that moment and when I first told you about this, Tegan. And I was like, I want to start something that is on a grander scale that can allow women to connect and learn from each other and grow further faster. It was a very defining moment. And then when we started to talk about this, and I remember very clearly in October in 2022, when I was in Abu Dhabi and I was talking to both of you ladies about what the vision of this Sisterhood Collective company looked like. And now I'm really excited that we have come to where we have since then, because obviously we didn't do too much for the end of 2022, but we hit the ground running in 2023. And this is where we've already brought so much together and we're still defining our pathway. And I love that. I love how we're looking what's out in the world and thinking, what do people need from us and how can we best help? Because one thing that all three of us have in common is we want to help women live their best lives. That's our whole mantra. And together we can grow, thrive, and obviously connect and get there faster. And I think that's really, really key. What I wanted to ask you ladies is, has there been any particular resources or collaborations? Like for me, for example, to get the Sisterhood Collective off the ground and running and to create a vision that was just in my head was collaborating and partnering with my two besties, right? Because I knew this is not something I could do on my own. I needed amazing people to take this where we want to take it. Thank goodness you two came along, huh? best decision ever. But that's probably the biggest and best collaboration I've had. Talk about tell me a little bit about whether it's been a collaboration, whether it's a resource, a mentor, a person, books. What do you think's really helped you or had a significant impact on your personal growth?
I think for me, and just going back to Laurie about what you said about, about friends and things like that and having long lunches, I felt like with my transition, and maybe with a lot of people when they're looking at making a big life decision, our friends either are like, yeah, do it, as a like, because they're like, yeah, you'll be fine. Like they don't really have any thought around it. Or they're like, oh, I think that's a really bad decision. You should just stay doing what you're doing. So I think sometimes we need to break out of our, like maybe what our little friend circle is, and have either, like you said, it's connections and collaborations with people who are like-minded. They're people maybe like the three of us who have all made a leap at some point in our lives and turned a corner and gone a different path and succeeded at it. Or it's people, that you aspire to be, or, you need to have that collaboration of women who can help you create that transition. And as far as collaboration, mine was definitely mentoring. My business was sailing along, and then I was like, oh, what do I do now? And being a little bit like me, I get bored really easily. I don't know what I'm doing next. I just I'm a bit on the fly. So I reached out and sought mentoring, and it changed my life. And one of the first activities was Perfect Day. And I laugh now because I still have a copy of my perfect day, which was 4 years ago. And it was like, oh, are you making enough money? Yeah. What does it look like? Oh, I want to work like 8 hours a day. I want to be clean in my gym, and I want to be training and working and doing all of this. And if I only have a few hours sleep, I don't care. Like I was in the throes of it. And I look now and I'm like, oh, that's my worst nightmare. Like I never want that perfect day ever again. So it's really funny to look back on the visualization. And from that mentoring collaboration is how now the sisterhood has come about. It's opened up doors. I've met Lauren. I've met so many other people that are just like me and can give me advice that I know is sound because they've either been there and done it before, or they're going to give me the advice of like, look, just maybe this is a better way around it. They're not going to shut me down, judge me, or, the support is it's real and it's authentic, and it's from people that share the same belief systems that I do. So I think, finding your network is really, really important.
Yeah, I think I completely agree, Deegan. I mean, I have so many amazing friends, and it hasn't made a difference in my life because they're all at different stages. They've all got different ideas of what their perfect life is. They're all doing their own thing, which is fine. And what I've come to realize is what I should have done earlier is seek out people who have got the same values and vision, or maybe even a mentor that could help me push myself along. And now being part of this, I've come to realize how important it is. And if everybody had it's not like having a best friend, but it's like if you had like a little mentor best friend that was like holding your hand and like gave you all that advice, gave you confidence, like they just told you, yes, you can do anything, and you could go and do it knowing that someone had your back. I think that that's really, really important. I think the hard part is maybe trying to find where those people are. And I think that's what we're trying to do at the sisterhood, that, if you join and there's going to be heaps of people there who have got the same interests as you, or the same problems as you, or they're trying to start a business or do a side hustle, or, expand their business, or their business is just like going down the drain. They hate it. They want to do something else. There's going to be like-minded people there who aren't your friends, who aren't going to not judge you, but they'll give you sound advice. They'll tell you the truth. They'll help you. It's the judgment thing as well, that they're just there to help, to like a soundboard, and everybody needs that. And it's mind-boggling to myself that I haven't discovered this world sooner. I mean, I keep thinking, God, where could I have been if I had just joined the sisterhood like 10 years ago? So I'm excited to see where it goes. And that's it. You need that network of people or those connections. It just makes such a difference. And it's made such a difference in such a small time frame for me that I just want other people to know that. It just, I don't know. It's not salesy or anything. It just, you just don't get that in your own small friendship group. You need something else. You need somebody who's been there and has done it where you want to be. You need to find someone who has done what you've done. So I need to find somebody who is a single mom, has come, needs to do this, wants to, maybe work from home and be there for her kids. Like, find that person, see how they did it, and you can do it as well. You don't have to do everything by yourself. I think people feel like, oh, well, just, I've got to do something, and it's little step by step by step, and you make little steps forward, or you make no steps forward, or you find a group of people and you can just go step, 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 step. That's the cool thing about it. And yeah.
You're 100% right, Lauren. The key is you don't have to do it alone. In fact, I'm so glad that you decided to jump into our Action Accelerator Mastermind, because the amount of personal growth that you have had, the confidence and the shift in your mindset that I can see is truly inspiring. In fact, I love how you are taking back control of your life and doing the work to live your best life. So it just comes back to actually knowing what your best life looks like for you. And I think starting off with a simple exercise of what your perfect day looks like is a really, really good start. And then once you sit back and take a look at what that best life looks like, or best day, is identifying what area of your life you could probably approach and start working towards improving tomorrow or today, and then just doing one thing per day or one thing per week to get where you need to be. The second part to that, I think, is actually recognizing the wins. Maybe it's once a week that you sit there and go, you take a bit of time on the weekend and you're sitting at the beach, or you're just sitting in the backyard, and you sit there and think, well, what good have I done this week? How have I moved forward in whatever? And then sit there and go, damn, I've done a good job with whatever, and that's something we don't do. We, instead of saying, oh, I'm so glad I did that one tiny weeny little thing this week, instead we say, I can't believe I haven't done all this stuff yet. We need to turn that around, flip it over, and just look at, well, hang on, you might not have done all this other stuff, but you have done this, and well done me, and celebrate those wins. I think we need to stop waiting for someone to give us permission to be who we want to be. And I'm going to leave that podcast there. Ladies, I appreciate your time today. Thank you for sharing some of your personal stories and opening up. I really do appreciate it. For everybody else, I encourage you to get out there, go and live your best life. Take one step at a time to get there. If you need any help along the way, please reach out to us. We'd love to help you. We have plenty of free resources, and you can find us on Instagram. You can subscribe to our podcast and you will be notified when we release the next episode. And thank you so much for joining us today, and we will speak to you in the next week or so. Thank you for joining us on the Sisterhood Collective podcast. Remember to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any upcoming episodes. And if you want to be the first to hear what is new at Sisterhood Collective, you can find out more on our Instagram, or you can sign up to receive our weekly newsletter and let the good times continue to roll. Now it's time to turn your clear vision into bold action. I'm Laurie Drummond, your host, and until next time, keep striving to live that best life. Take care, and we'll see you soon.